So I was watching some clips from Nuggets Media Day, and of course, Russ is there talking about his new team, and it just got me thinking about, the prime years of Russell Westbrook, his MVP season in 2017, and just got me wondering, just how good was he that year?
I just miss Prime Russ. The dude was always must-watch TV. You had to tune in on League Pass, and that MVP season, it was ridiculous. The stat lines, averaging a triple-double. I never thought that would happen. I never thought I'd be able to witness that. Let's look back on this incredible season.
Before we start talking about Russ's MVP season, if you have already, make sure to leave this video a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. So after the 2016 Western Conference Finals, the OKC Thunder found themselves at a bit of a crossroads. They had just blown a 3-1 lead to the Golden State Warriors, and now Kevin Durant, probably the best player in franchise history, was a free agent, and rumors were just swirling about him potentially leaving Oklahoma City. He took meetings with the Clippers, the Spurs, the Celtics, the Heat, and of course the Golden State Warriors. Lakers and Knicks didn't get meetings, but they were also, trying to get in the mix somehow. And eventually, as we all know, on July 4th, 2016, KD ruined everyone's 4th of July when he announced his intention to sign with the Golden State Warriors. And all of a sudden, the Thunder's offseason, which was complicated to begin with, got even more crazy because now your best player's out the door for nothing, and your second best player, Russell Westbrook, his contract is up in a year.
And I thought for sure Russ was gone. I mean, there wasn't much left on this Thunder team, and a lot of teams were calling the Thunder, which made sense. You want to get a guy like Russ still in his prime, one of the best players in the league, and basically the Thunder were like, you know what, guys, chill. We already lost someone. We don't need you calling trying to get our other player. And it was shocking to me. They signed him to a 3-year, $85 million extension to stay in OKC. And Russ and Dame have always had that rivalry, so I've never been this massive Russ fan. But in that moment, I had so much damn respect for him.
I was going to say, shocking from the fact that Russ chose to stay, or shocking from the fact that the Thunder gave him the contract?
I was shocked he chose to stay. The Thunder, I get it. You want to retain one guy. You don't want to completely blow up things yet. And Russ wasn't 34. I think it made sense from OKC's standpoint. I was just surprised Russ wanted to stay there and try to build a contender back up.
Yeah, I mean, he immediately became not quite like a folk hero in Oklahoma City, but kind of like a legend, just given the fact that, Durant walked out on the Thunder basically, and Russ was like, no, I love it here. I'm going to stay. I'm going to try to build something. He became a hero to Oklahoma City, and basically immediately after he re-signed, people were already looking at him as a potential MVP candidate, and maybe potentially the first guy since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double. I mean, he had almost done that the year prior. He was only 2.2 rebounds per game away from doing that the year prior, and with Russ's, competitive streak, and with Durant leaving OKC the way he was, I think plenty of people were like, okay, he's gonna go on a revenge tour. Expectations for the Thunder overall, though, most people probably thought 7th, 8th seed.
Yeah, it's kind of what I thought, 6 to 8 range. I mean, they're bringing in Oladipo and Sabonis because the Magic made that boneheaded trade to get Ibaka. You had Steven Adams. It's not the best supporting cast, but you got Russ. You got some decent players. It's an okay team, but in a very tough Western Conference.
It's a weird team.
Very weird.
Oladipo, Ennis, Steven Adams, Robertson.
Right.
It's just a weird collection of guys. Russ started this regular season, though, on an absolute heater. He opened the season dropping 32 points, 11 boards, 9 assists in a road win against the Philadelphia 76ers. This was that infamous game where he scores an and-one layup early in the first quarter, and some Philly fan is just pulling the Stone Cold Steve Austin, giving him the double birds. I don't understand what Russ could have possibly done to make this man so angry. Why?
And shout out to Russ for not retaliating.
No sells it.
Doing anything stupid.
Brilliant.
He just had the funniest reaction where he points at the dude and he's like, anyone else seeing this? This dude is losing his mind out here. And in the next game, we get just one of the most classic Russ stat lines you'll ever see. 51 points, 13 boards, 10 assists on 17 of 44 shooting as they beat Phoenix by 3. Just love it.
Oh, you have a lot more games like this too. If you love this kind of play for Russell Westbrook, where he's just put up these insane stat lines on terrible shooting, plenty of it this season. The Thunder, though, they did start the season really well. They were 6-1, tied for the best record in the NBA with Cleveland and with the Clippers. Warriors, only to immediately lose 4 games in a row. And this would kind of become a running theme throughout the year. There were a lot of instances where the Thunder would have, like a 3-4 game winning streak, and they would follow it up with like a 3-4 game losing streak. And the fact that they can never really avoid those like long-ish losing streaks, it made it really difficult for them to like break into the upper echelon of the Western Conference standings. But Russ individually was playing out of his mind to start the year. He had 16 triple-doubles stacked up before the end of December. By the way, that was 16 in 34 games, so almost won every other game. He had a streak of 7 straight triple-doubles starting at the end of November. And I mean, the highlight reel from this season is just fucking endless.
I mean, he had that lefty poster dunk on Capella. That went crazy to seal that game. He had that incredible crossover and then no-look pass to Steven Adams where he hit like an emote.
He does, yeah.
It looks so funny. I just love that. And when the calendar turned to 2017, Russ just continued that insane pace. Listen to these stats he had in February and March. In February, 33.4 points a night, 11 boards, 10 assists. And then in March, 34.1 points a night, 10.5 boards, 11.1 assists. I mean, he's got to be an all-star starter, right?
No.
I mean, it's Curry and Harden. Like,
yeah.
We knew it with Dame. Like, the guards in the West at this time, whew, you had some insane players.
And this is fan voting too, so Steph's obviously going to make it over him. And then as popular as Russ was around this point, he still probably wasn't as popular as Harden. And this isn't to take away from Steph or Harden because they were having great years, but considering how the year turned out, the fact that Russ wasn't even an all-star starter is kind of hilarious.
Dude still dropped 41 points though off the bench in the all-star game. I mean, this was just one of the dumbest all-star games ever. AD had like 50 plus as well. Russ shoots 7 of 13 from 3 because of course it's an all-star game. He just, for some reason, always shoots the lights out in all-star games.
If he could shoot in the regular season like he does in the all-star game from 3, he'd be the greatest player of all time.
He would.
And as good as Russ was in the first half of the season, he was arguably even better in the second half. And just the stat lines and the highlights, and this isn't even all of them. This is just a few I just picked out looking at the basketball reference page. 32 points, 17 boards, 11 assists, and a 15-point win over Denver. 36, 11, and 10 in a win over Sacramento. How about 38, 11, and 10 and a game winner on the road in Utah? Can I interest you in 24, 10, and 16 in a road win against the Raptors where he throws basically like a half-court bounce pass and nutmegs Corey Joseph in an assist to Victor Oladipo? And then one of the best games you'll ever see, 57 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, and a game-tying 3 over 2 defenders to send a game to overtime against Orlando on the road where the Thunder would eventually prevail. I mean, that's nuts in and of itself, and he was playing well in games that they lost too.
Yeah, I mean, 49, 8, and 5 in a 2-point loss to the Rockets, 47, 11, and 8 in KD's return to OKC. We got a whole video about this game. Basically, Russ did everything he could. I mean, look at the stat line, but it was the Warriors, so they still got the win. 58 points in a home loss to the Blazers, and then 5 days before that, also had 45 points and a road loss to the Blazers.
So the Blazers kind of owned the Thunder outside.
I mean, you could say that. You could say it. This was the perfect example. We hear it all the time. They're only going to go as far as their best player takes them. The Thunder were only going to go as far as Russ dragged them.
Yeah, I mean, again, Oladipo, Ennis, Steven Adams, some good players. But I mean, on offense especially, most of the time, it was completely Russ or bust. And as the season wound down, I mean, you could really tell that Russ was chasing that triple-double average. He had 16 triple-doubles in his final 25 games and had probably his best performance of the season in the Thunder's third to final game of the year on the road in Denver. Thunder kept this game close early, but by the 6-minute mark of the fourth quarter, the Nuggets had opened up a 14-point lead. Russ was playing well though, and everyone thought that like the big highlight and like talking point of this game was going to be a seemingly normal corner 3 off a Russ assist with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, but that assist actually gave Russ his 42nd triple-double of the season, breaking Oscar Robertson's record of 41 for most triple-doubles in a season. And I mean, there were some Nuggets fans who were even, cheering for Russ because I mean, it's such a historic accomplishment and whatnot. And everyone thought, the Nuggets were still up by 10 at that point. So Nuggets fans were like, okay, we're gonna win the game, but Russ had a really nice moment. No, Russ leads the Thunder all the way back. They're down 2 with 2.9 seconds left. Sabonis is inbounding the ball, and fun fact, he actually misses Victor Oladipo like wide open in the corner. Oladipo's like clapping for the ball and then pouts when he doesn't get it. But Sabonis inbounds it to Steven Adams. Adams hands it off to Russ, and Jamal Murray, who's guarding Russ, he kind of gets turned around. He loses him for just a brief second, and Russ hits a deep 3, 7-8 feet behind the three-point line, deep three, rattles it in. Thunder get a shocking win, and it's so hilarious because the same Nuggets fans who were, congratulating Russ on his historic achievement got to watch him knock their team out of playoff contention 4 minutes later.
Yeah, they were kind of already out of it. I mean, the Blazers and them were battling for it, but this was the nail in the coffin. I remember I loved Russ for this moment because of that. What a season for Russ. You lead the Thunder to a 47-35 record. That's good enough for the 6th seed. I mean, most MVPs, they're like top 3, but given the context, to drag this team to the 6th seed is incredible. Only 8 less wins than last year. Keep in mind, they had Kevin Durant on the roster last year, and he finishes the season averaging that triple-double, 31.6 points a night, 10.7 boards, 10.4 assists, becomes the first player since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double across an entire season. I mean, that was one of those things watching the NBA growing up, like they mentioned that stat. It's probably never going to happen again.
It was honestly on the level with like Wilt's season scoring record.
It actually was,
like Wilt averaged 50 points in a game. No one's ever going to come close to touching that. Oscar averaged that triple-double for an entire season. No one's ever going to come close to touching that. And honestly, like, we've had guys hover around it in the years since, like Jokic every year is right around it. I'm not sure when the next time we're going to see a guy. I mean, maybe Luka could do it if he really, really wanted to, but I'm not sure we're going to see another guy in the near future average a triple-double for an entire season. And it is worth pointing out, because this is one of the biggest criticisms of Russ, especially during this time, but kind of for his entire career, is that, he chases stats, he chases triple-doubles more so than winning, which he does chase stats. I mean, you're lying to yourself if you genuinely believe he wasn't trying to average a triple-double this season, because he clearly was going for it. But also, the Thunder were 33-9 in games where he recorded a triple-double. So, I mean, unless you want to make the argument that, they were going to win all those games already and he was just stat padding. You tell me he was stat padding for 42 games, or I guess 33 games that they won. I mean, 42 games is a pretty big sample size, and the Thunder going 33-9, like, I'm going to take that.
I mean, I'd rather have him chase assists than just more points.
Right.
Like, at least he's getting dudes involved. It's still a stat, but
I'd rather him crash the glass than stand at the three-point line and do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Season caps off with him winning the MVP at that dumbass NBA award show. We'll bitch about that every time it gets brought up. It only happened like 3 years, but
why have him accept the award in front of like an insanely hyped playoff crowd?
Right.
Accept it in front of a bunch of suits.
Yeah.
In a cold auditorium in mid-July.
After the season's over and everyone knows he's won the award and we're just on to like the next year. Made no sense. I mean, there were still other criticisms, like mainly his shooting percentage, efficiency wasn't great. Dude was a turnover machine. But at the same time, like anyone that wants to discredit this MVP or this season, absolutely historic, drags a team that would have been nothing without him to the playoffs in the 6th seed, puts up incredible numbers, has incredible moments. Is it the most efficient, perfect season? No, but it was one of the most entertaining, incredible NBA seasons you will ever see.
And on to the playoffs, the Thunder matched up with the Houston Rockets led by former Thunder man James Harden. And the Rockets, despite losing Dwight Howard that offseason and kind of having an underwhelming offseason where they picked up, Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson, they had kind of shocked a lot of people by winning 55 games. Mike D'Antoni was a brilliant hire. James Harden fit perfectly into his system. And the Rockets were pretty heavy favorites in this series, but I think a lot of people thought that the Thunder could, put up a good fight because of Russ. Well, game 1 didn't really go the Thunder's way. Sure, it was close in the first half, but by the end of the third quarter, Rockets were up 15. They'd end up winning by 31. Russ didn't really play well. Harden went for 37 and the Rockets dominated. And game 2 wasn't much better for the Thunder.
I mean, they led by 11 after the first. Russ gives you 12 first quarter points, but the Rockets battle back. They keep it close, but the Thunder actually held the lead for most of this game, even pushed it back up to 12 in the third. Rockets respond with a quick 12-3 run though to end the third, but the Thunder still had a 3-point lead entering the fourth, and Russ through 3 quarters was just terrific. 36 points in 3 quarters in a playoff game on 13 of 25 shooting, and also basically had a triple-double. He had 9 rebounds and 11 assists, but the fourth quarter didn't quite go his way. I mean, he scored 15 points if you just look at the points category, but on 4 of 18 shots and 1 of 7 from 3, like how do you chuck up 18 shots in a fourth quarter where there's only 12 minutes?
Keep in mind, he had chucked 25 shots in the first 3 quarters up to this point. Yeah, I mean, this fourth fourth quarter was like the worst side of MVP Russ. And to be fair to him, he wasn't getting much help from the rest of his team. They shot 3 of 11. And I mean, he finishes with 51 points, 10 boards, 13 assists. You know, he has a plus 11. It's a great stat line if you just look at it like that, but -7 in the fourth quarter. Again, he had a good shooting night going into the fourth, and yet because he has such a bad fourth quarter shooting, he ends at 17 of 43 from the field. And you're like, this is a game where Russ legitimately shot them into the game and then shot them out of the game.
Yeah, I don't want to criticize him too much because he still had a positive plus minus, like it wasn't his fault. And he dropped a fucking 50-point triple-double. But yeah, that was the part of Russ. Like, for all the good, you had some negative, and it was the missed shots and the turnovers. Game 3 back in OKC, though, epic duel between Russ and Harden. Just love to see it. The two former teammates battling it out. Thunder jump out to a 14-point lead. Rockets battle back, though, behind Harden, and they briefly take the lead in the third before the Thunder take it back in the fourth. Rockets were down 3 with a little less than a minute to go, and then Harden hits a big 3 to tie the game at 111. Thunder take the lead right back on a Steven Adams tip-in, and with 8.4 seconds left, Russ at the line, Thunder up 1. Russ made the first, but he missed the second, so the Rockets have one last chance, and Harden kind of took just like a weird lackadaisical 3, like we're used to that iconic step back.
He takes his time going up the floor and then just kind of shoots it. Like, he doesn't make a move or anything. Like, I thought for sure watching this back, because I hadn't seen this game in a long time, I'm like, oh, he's going to dribble up, he's going to take a step back, 3 on Robertson. Kind of just rises up and just shoots over him.
I mean, sometimes Harden tries to do that nonchalant shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's kind of what happened here.
Amazing game, though. Harden goes for 44, 6 and 6. Russ goes for 32, 12 and 11. And they combine for 12 total turnovers.
I miss those boys in their prime. Because it was stuff like this on a nightly basis.
Game 4 in Oklahoma City, Thunder down 2-1. This was a weird one, especially from the Rockets' perspective. Not really that weird for the Thunder. Russ scored 35 on 35% shooting, and he actually got a decent amount of support from Oladipo, Steven Adams, Oscar Robertson, and Jeremy Grant. Harden, meanwhile, for the Rockets, scores only 16 points on 5 of 16 shooting, but he gets 64 points from his bench. Eric Gordon, Lou Williams go for 18 apiece, and Nene drops 28 points on 12 of 12 shooting.
That is unbelievable. I mean, it shows the difference between these teams. Like, Harden was insane, Westbrook was insane, but one of them had a much better supporting cast. And the Rockets were basically kept in the game because of that supporting cast. Nene, Lou Williams, and Eric Gordon combined for 26 fourth quarter points, and they only missed 2 shots.
Absolutely unbelievable. And down the stretch, I mean, the Thunder are down 5, 22 seconds left when Steven Adams goes to the line and makes the first. So keep in mind, if you make the second one, you're only down 3. You can go for a steal, hope the Rockets go for a bad pass. But quick thinking Steven Adams, when really no one's paying attention, just throws the ball out the front of the rim, catches it in midair, redirects it out to Russ, who hits a deep 3. So now you're only down 1. And if you're OKC, shot clock's off, so you gotta foul. Except you can't foul when the ball makes it up to Nene underneath the hoop and he's shooting a layup. And Jeremy Grant, instead of tackling him, just kind of meekly like slaps at him, and Nene gets an and 1. Literally the only thing on that possession that cannot happen if you're the Thunder.
You gotta lay the dude out. Like, do whatever you can.
Clothesline him
to
if you
not
have
make
to.
it a flagrant. That's what you gotta do, and Jeremy Grant did not do that.
Yeah, next possession, Russ gets a decent look at a 3, but misses, but Steven Adams is there to tip it in, and then on the ensuing inbounds pass, he almost gets a steal. He like picks off Eric Gordon's pass, but unluckily for him, the ball just goes right back to Gordon, who gets fouled, makes his free throws, and the Rockets prevail 113-109 to take a 3-1 lead in the series. And then game 5 back in Houston was a certified Russ classic. I mean, it was basically identical to the 2 games he'd play over the next 2 years that eliminated him from the playoffs against Utah and against the Blazers. He played pretty damn well in basically all aspects except for 2. He scored 47 points, had 11 rebounds, and had 11 assists, and shot 10 of 16 from 2. All that is great, but he shot 5 of 18 from 3, which is nearly as many threes taken as the rest of his team combined, and he also had 7 turnovers, which is as much as the rest of his team combined.
Yeah, and again, I'll kind of defend him here because 50-point triple-double damn near, you're gonna get the turnovers. He was never a good shooter, but he did all that, and his co-stars did all. Oladipo, who is supposed to be the second option, gives you 4 of 17 shooting, and then his next leading scorers were Jeremy Grant, and I don't know if people even remember this dude, Alex Abrinas, who only scored 11 apiece. Thunder actually had the lead at the end of the third, though, thanks to a 20-point quarter from Russ. Like we said, he was balling out, but he was not very good in the fourth, only scoring 9 on 2 of 11 shooting. They lose 105-99 to get eliminated in the first round. I mean, this is kind of how I thought this series would go maybe to 6. I was very excited to see this series going into it. You got the 2 big names in it, but at the end of the day, like we said, Harden's supporting cast was so much better.
Yeah, it's not exactly a surprise because, like I said, the Rockets were pretty big favorites in this series, but I mean, it's always disappointing when you get bounced in the first round, especially because games 2, 4, and 5 were all winnable right there. And, you know, you're the MVP, you're going out in the first round. First time that's happened, I think, probably since Dirk in 2007. So, you know, disappointing end of the season for the Thunder. So now we get on to the big question as to whether Russ during his MVP season is over or underrated. And I want to state first, I think the achievement of this season is honestly kind of underrated. The fact that he averaged a triple-double, led that OKC team to 47 wins. I mean, we've only seen one other player in NBA history average a triple-double. I mean, we had guys like Jokic, Luka, who can't do it. LeBron never did it. Magic never did it. And that OKC roster, if you take Russ off that roster, it's probably like 20-win roster. It's easily the worst offensive team in the entire NBA. So I think people are slightly underrating, especially because Russ averaged a triple-double in the years after this season. I think people underrate the achievement that was this season. But Russ the player, I think people slightly overrate him because this was like the perfect situation for Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I would mostly agree with each of those points. The smart thing would have been to get the triple-double this season, then never do it again. But obviously, like, he's not going to do that. He's still going for these stats, still trying to put up these numbers. But since he kept doing it, that's just how humans are. Like, once we see something over and over again, we're like, you know, it is what it is.
Could be the most impressive thing in the world. But if you've seen it 10, 15 times, you're like, I'm bored. What's next?
But if you actually think about it, one other player in really one season in NBA history, there's been someone average a triple-double, and now Russ has done it like, I think 4 times, maybe it's 5, I think it's 4. That is just absurd to think about, but I would mostly agree. This season, it actually isn't really been talked about enough these past couple of years. We've kind of forgotten about it. It doesn't help that Russ has, you know, struggled the past couple of seasons as well. Like, his reputation is in the best spot, but this season was absolutely incredible. Russ the player, it's tough to judge. Like, he's incredible. He's had his great moments. He has some big flaws as well. His stands will act like he's the greatest player ever. Some will even say he's better than Steph, which is batshit insane.
It's lunacy.
But when you compare him to Dame and Kyrie, like, it's tough because he's a better floor raiser. But if you talk about pairing someone with LeBron, pairing someone with a guy like Giannis, like, I might take Dame or Kyrie. They might be a better second option.
I would definitely take Dame or Kyrie, and it's not even close. Like, if I had a team of bums and I needed to pick either Dame, Kyrie, or Russ, I'm taking Russ every time because I know he can get us to 45 wins and we'll make the playoffs. Like, I don't think Dame or Kyrie could have even come close to doing what Russ did with this Oklahoma City team this year. But if you have to put them on a team with just one other star or a couple other stars, I'm taking Dame or Kyrie all the time because we saw this with Russ. Like, the next year they go out and get Paul George and Carmelo and they win one more game and they go out in the first round. And then the next year they get rid of Melo because he was the problem, and you still have Paul George and they win one more game and they go out in the first round. Like, you said it, Russ is an incredible floor raiser, but he also kind of puts a cap on what your team's going to be. Like, even during this MVP year, I don't think Russ could have been the best player on a championship team. It's not the type of player he is. He works best as a solo act where he can dominate the ball, but that's not going to win you a championship. In fact, it's not even going to get you out of the first round.
I mean, that's the thing. None of them are the best players on a championship team. We found that out with Dame. Kyrie found that out himself in Boston, and Russ was never able to do it either. So you talk about who's the best second option. I think it's tough. One thing we got to mention, at least Russ isn't a turnstile on defense. Our boy Dame is. Kyrie, he can play decent defense if he's locked in, you know, doesn't have to carry an offensive load. Russ can play some defense. I think it's really tough. To be honest, I think all of them have their flaws. All of them have their insane strengths as well. And I think it really depends on the situation, but I'll take my boy Dame.
Yeah, same.
We are biased as hell for Dame, so we're taking Dame. But this season from Russ, absolutely incredible. Dame could never do something like this, and it shouldn't get forgotten in NBA history because this was absolutely historic.
That's the video, guys. What do you think of Russ's MVP season? I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving it a like, as it really does help us out. And while you're here, why not check out some of our other videos as well? And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.